Hello and welcome back to Paloma Valley. In the last episode, we worked a lot on industry because that was the highest demand. The campus area finally got up to level 4, so we were able to put in some new assets. We also worked on the hotel industry a little bit by adjusting the nightly costs and adding things around it to meet the criteria, such as the new park area by the hotels in Strawberry Flats that has the theatre unique building and some park detailing around it. There's also some new offices down there to meet the office demand, and it's now running at 100% popularity. We're also having sewage and electricity issues because there's been an influx of people moving in and loads more industry. So I was trying to balance the sewage in particular until I could unlock the eco water treatment plants at the capital city milestone, which we hit at the end of the last episode. And that was mostly helped by starting a new district. Finally got onto the piece of land over the river from Strawberry Flats, and we started Gilded Beach. Gilded Beach is all about glamour and opulence, and it's going to be a tourist hub for people coming into the city with an international train station link and public transport links from Castlemead. There's the huge Mall of Marvel's unique building in the centre of this district with a large sunken train station out the front. And I intended to make this station into a bit of a spectacle in the last episode, but unfortunately the asset that I was using was broken and I had to swap it out for a much smaller one. Even though this is still a large station, it's so much smaller than the one I was using before, so I plan to make the area around the station very grand, and that's going to be even easier now because my husband very kindly bought me the Plazas and Promenades DLC that I've been wanting for ages, so I can turn the area around the station into a pedestrian zone with lots of detailing, lots of parks, and hopefully it will become a bit of a tourist centre. Because I had so many issues at the end of the last episode with the train station, I didn't get to do as much in this district as I hoped, but I have a lot more plans for this area, and one of the most important things that I didn't get to do was buying a new tile. Buying a new tile is something that I've been talking about for quite a while now, and I've been really hesitant to do it because I only had one tile available and I had to get the population up by so much before I could get another one, and I didn't want to make the wrong choice. But now that I've hit capital city status, I have 2 tiles available, so I feel a lot more comfortable buying one. So initially my thought was to go north of this highway because there's loads of flat land up here that would be good for starting new districts. I can put new public transport connections in and feed some of the cars going off to the north rather than all to the south. But now that I've come down to this part of the map, I actually think that building up there is going to be a little bit counterintuitive. So I've decided to buy this tile here on the left. This will allow us to make a new highway connection, and I think at the moment that is the most important thing that we can put in, because this interchange here has so many cars going through it to get to all of these districts. And while there's a small highway interchange in the industry area, that's mostly used by industry vehicles and not by residents. So by putting in a highway interchange on this tile, I can pull the road down through this corner and down to Gilded Beach. So I'm going to buy this tile right here. And now we have a huge stretch of highway to build on, plus we also have access to this piece of land here, which we can then start to build to the north if we want to. There's some small pockets of natural resources down here, but there isn't masses of each one. There's a small amount of farming here and a little bit of ore, but not really enough to do an industry area. And I do need to add some new industry because it's still the highest demand, and I don't want to put all of the industry in Castlemead. So I might add another farming block down here possibly, where it's kind of in the corner between the highway and the river. So let's add in our highway interchange. So I'm going to put this on pause while I remove the roads and put an interchange in, and I'm going down to this part of the road even though it's further away from Gilded Beach, because I don't want to put the interchange on the farming area, so I'm going to stick it here instead and then pull the road down in this direction. So let's have a look at the interchanges. I want one that goes off in both directions and is fairly compact, but has the capacity to take quite a lot of traffic. In Calathea, I've been using this roundabout interchange quite a lot, but I know from that series that that does cause issues because traffic is having to cross over each other. My favourite is the Clover Stack, but we really don't have enough room for that here. It kind of takes up this whole piece of land, so we're not really going to be able to use that. I think I'm going to try out this intersection, the DCMI Compact, because it doesn't take up that much space. So let's give that a go. The main highway goes underground here and the interchange is over the top, and even though I wouldn't personally want to drive around this myself, it's quite an interesting looking interchange. But let's connect up these highways again so we can take it off of pause. This interchange is exactly what I was looking for, with it being so compact. So now there's plenty of room to go out in this direction for the farming industry, and I can pull the road all the way down to Gilded Beach. So I'm going to use a national highway for this road because in my experience the interchanges seem to work better on these kinds of roads. So the main direction that it's going to be going is this way, so I'm going to sweep it down all the way to Gilded Beach. So I don't want to pull the highway too close into this district, and because the edge of this tile is here, we're not really going to be able to go that far out in this direction, so the district is mainly going to be over here. There's a few ways that you can end a highway. The most simple one is to connect it to a normal road and to just continue it on with a simple interchange, or you could make something like a roundabout. I think I'm going to do a very simple roundabout at the end of this highway and then have multiple exits coming off so that all the traffic isn't just being fed down one direction. I'm going to use a 3-lane highway for this and just make a very simple roundabout. Obviously that looks awful, but by using the network multi-tool I can turn that into a circle. There we go. Now that is a perfect circle. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have one road coming off down here, and then I'm going to extend this boulevard all the way along so it runs all the way to the edge of the tile, and then have another road coming off this way that will connect to this road here. Obviously this is a residential area and I don't necessarily want to be forcing all the traffic through there, but people that are trying to get to the town centre will hopefully go off this way, and people that are trying to get to the housing will take the other road. It may look a little bit weird for now joining this 2-lane road to a 4-lane road with an intersection, but I do plan to have more roads coming off of here, so I've kind of left this in here to remind myself of what I've got planned. Because industry is still the highest demand, I'm going to start the farming area over by the highway exit. It's not going to be very big, we're not working with a huge piece of land here, but we managed to get this farming area to be quite compact, so I'm sure I'm going to be able to do the same over here. And now that we have all of the assets available from the get-go, I'll be able to plan it out a little bit better than the previous one. Now that we've got this tile available, I'm going to put the eco water treatment plants up here. By putting them over here near the highway, they're not going to be interfering with any residential areas, and the water that comes out is 100% clean, so it's not going to affect the intake pipes up here. I'll probably need to put in a few to handle the whole city, so let's put a couple in and see how we get on. So I ended up putting in 3 eco water treatment plants down here to handle the whole city. Did have a little bit of a problem with flooding for a moment because this bank was pretty much on water level, and obviously having 3 treatment plants here, each with 4 outlet pumps, did raise the water level a little bit too high, so I just had to raise the bank of this part of the river up, and we haven't had any issues since. Obviously we've got the water pumps down here, so that's picking up a lot of the excess water that's being pumped into the river. There doesn't seem to be any other issues further down the river, but I will be keeping an eye on this, and if I need to add any more sewage pumps, I'll definitely be putting them in a different place. But it has now meant the houses down here are no longer suffering from the noise pollution of the outlet pumps, and this part of the river is no longer polluted. These floating garbage collectors have done a good job of reducing the pollution in this part of the map, but the pollution does still go further down these rivers, and I don't have access to those tiles yet. I could put some on the edge of this tile here, but to be honest, the water's going to keep flowing down this way and it's going to keep getting pushed into this bay anyway, so I'm going to need to wait until I have access to these areas to put more floating garbage collectors down here. So for the moment we're just going to pretend that that pollution isn't there. So back to farming. I put in the main building, but obviously they're struggling for electricity at the moment. I put in the solar farm down here for the treatment plants, and once we've finished this district it will carry the electricity all the way across, so let me put in the rest of the assets. This farming area ended up being a lot bigger than I initially intended it to be. I think it might actually be larger than the farming area we have over here, which is a little bit embarrassing because I thought I was working with a smaller piece of land, but it seems to be working okay. There aren't that many issues with the production process. The traffic flow isn't too bad and the area just reached level 2. So I think I'm okay to leave these guys as they are for a bit and work on some other stuff. Now that the industry demand's gone down a little bit, the highest is now commercial. This works quite well for me because I really want to work on the centre of Gilded Beach, and there's going to be a big commercial centre for tourists. I personally want to use the shopping mall's commercial type for this district because I think it would go best with this kind of glamorous, opulent kind of vibe. The last time I used it was at the very beginning of the series to do a strip mall. So instead of plopping buildings, I think I'm just going to zone them. But first off, I need a roadmap. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I now have the Plazas and Promenades DLC, so I'd like to make this a pedestrian zone. The first thing to do is to paint an area. I just want to do this area in the centre here and kind of bring it almost down to the beach. I am still learning how to use this DLC, so there may be a few things that I get wrong, but I have given it a go on another save game and tested a few things out, so I hope that I'm going to be okay with it. Now it says that I need to add a service point. I think that's this one. So I'm going to put this somewhere along this main road. I think I'm going to put it just after this intersection here because I'm going to be drawing the roads down from here and here. So I should have unlocked these roads now. I think I'm going to go with the sandstone style because it will match the vibe of the shopping mall and the metro station. So let's put in a large pedestrian road going down here. I think I'm going to do the one with trees. I'm still getting used to the size of the asset, so I may need to redraw these roads a few times to make sure that I've got enough room. I love this over the road plaza with the glass roof. I think it's so cool and it's so different to everything else we have so far in the game. And I think it would just about fit in this gap. That's perfect. There's not even any clipping there. That is exactly what I wanted. Okay. Because the exit of the station is on this side, I'm going to kind of continue the tiling up to the road so that I can put a little bit of detailing on. There we go, it's not too much, but I just wanted to make it look like the station continues all the way up to the road. And as you would have seen, there's lots of people coming out of the station and going straight into this pedestrian area. So I think I need to get some other things down here for them to do. The highest demand at the moment is commercial, so let me paint this area and let them zone in. Like I mentioned before, I'm going to be using the shopping mall style because I'm not a massive fan of the wall-to-wall style and I want this area to feel a little bit more glamorous than that. Luckily these do contribute towards the area focus even though they're not the wall-to-wall style. I was a little bit nervous that that wasn't going to happen, but like I said at the beginning, I'm still learning how to use this DLC. I'm probably going to do things that are wrong, but I really love the pedestrian roads and I love all the parks that come with it, and I can't wait to unlock some of the unique buildings once we get further into the game. Now that those are coming in nicely, I'm just going to do the same on the other side. It would be cool if I could put the bus station in here somehow as well, but I need to put that away from the centre bit because the roads need to be different and I really want to use these road types for the centre, so I will get to that later on. I'm not a massive fan of how you can see the backs of these buildings down by the station, so I may bulldoze this all already and redo it so that there are shops facing the station on a different road and then they're back to back rather than face to face. So I'm sorry guys, I know you just got here, but I'm going to remove you already. And let's start again. So I'm going to put a road down here instead that runs along the train station. I think that looks a lot better. I don't know whether people will be able to get onto the train station across here, but it looks like they can at the least. So let's figure out where the next road will need to be. I want it to be 4 squares deep and then another 4. I'm going to need to extend these roads a little bit down this way and then put the road going in between. And now we can do that whole bit here as shopping malls, and the backs of the buildings will be facing each other, so hopefully no one will be able to see them. I've decided to put in another commercial block because commercial is still the highest demand, and it looks like most of these have actually zoned in as restaurants, funnily enough, which is quite nice because that's kind of the vibe I wanted to go for in this district. But it's interesting that the majority of these have come in that style. I think down towards the coastline, I'm going to use a couple of the realistic functioning beach parks from the workshop. These are great. I've used these in so many of my builds. They draw in a huge amount of tourists, and as long as you put them on the right terrain, they do actually look realistic. So I think I'm going to put a couple of these in the middle here, and hopefully that will leave us enough room on either side to put a couple of the over the road parks in. So I'm going to put a food truck plaza on this side, and an ice cream stand plaza on the other. It looks like we've already got people coming down here. These are going to get super busy later. They draw in so many people to the point where it actually starts to affect the roads in some of my other builds because there are so many people coming down to them. But that's exactly what I want with this district. This pedestrian area service point is saying that it's close to the limit for cargo traffic. I'm not exactly sure what that means. And I think it may have unlocked us some new assets, so let's have a look. Okay, so now we've got a small cargo service point. But it looks like once you reach the limit for specific things with the generic service point, you'll unlock a specified service point for that thing. So let's put in a cargo service point and see if that helps. I don't really want these on this main road. I'm not really sure where else to put them. I may come up with a better idea later on, but for now I'm just going to stick them down here and hope for the best. Lots and lots of people coming into this district now, and they're so excited to get here that they're actually walking through the wall. And like I said, all of these people will be going down to the beaches. It looks like the metro station is also being used a lot more now. About 465 weekly passengers served, which is great. So let's have a look at the capacity for that metro line. It looks like this line is doing just fine. The trains have a really high capacity and they're not completely full. So I'm not too worried about this station overloading it. Now that I've added loads of commercial to this district, I'm going to work a little bit more on housing over here. In the last episode, I built these really cute pastel blocks with lots of houses of the same colour and the same style, and all of these are actually vanilla. So I'm going to add a few more of these little colourful blocks. I've added quite a few more colourful blocks to this area. There's some pink buildings down here that have little balconies around the back, and some of the same assets over here in green, plus another block of these Art Deco buildings. Some of these smaller ones with the balconies on both sides, some more Victorian style houses, and some very simple square ones in purple. Some people might find it a bit cheesy to do this, but it's very satisfying to me to have little blocks of the same colour dotted around. Something that we do need over here though is a high school. We're actually over capacity for high schools, and the closest one from here is miles away in Swan Square. So I want to add a high school block to this residential area, and I'm going to do that over here behind the mall. People will most likely travel from Strawberry Flats to get to this high school as well, and even people in Logan Heights don't have a local high school. So I want to put it somewhere that's going to be easy for everyone to get to via car and via public transport. I'm going to go with the high school from the Green Cities DLC, and I'm just going to stick it on this road down here. I'm also going to do a little bit of detailing around it with some parks and some car parks, and eventually this area will connect up to the road that goes along the back of the mall. My usual thing with high schools is to put some sports grounds around it, so let's see which ones I can fit in. I'm going to put this large football field over the road because it wouldn't quite fit in this block. I don't really want to be putting houses this close to the main boulevard, so it adds a little bit of separation and gives a huge entertainment boost to the whole area. I'm actually going to move the high school onto this end of this road because it's leaving quite an odd gap around it and I can't really fit much in the space. This gives us plenty of room to put another sports asset over here, and I think I'm going to go with the running track. We have one of these already in Swan Square, but that's quite a long way away, so I don't feel like it's too repetitive. Then I've got space for a small asset along here as well. This parking zone car park actually fits perfectly in this gap, so I think I'm going to go with that. I know a lot of these parks end up just being car parks, but it gives entertainment value in the same way that any other park would. It's also the same as the car park used outside the mall, so it's kind of carrying that theme through. The rest of Paloma Valley seems to actually be doing really well on its own. They're not having any issues with demands, all of the industry areas are self-sufficient, they're not having any garbage or sewage problems. The only thing they are lacking a little bit is education. Now that we've added a high school, there's more than enough spaces for everyone who wants to go to school. But the elementary school capacity is still really bad. Obviously we've got more elementary schools than we do high schools because they have a smaller capacity, but I still don't think this is quite enough for everyone that we've got in the city, and the population is only going to be growing, so we need to get ahead of that demand. Looking at where all of the high schools are at the moment, there's pretty much one in every district apart from Strawberry Flats. They've got 2 nearby, one in Loga Heights and one in Gilded Beach. The areas that I think might be struggling a little bit more are the suburban areas in Swan Square, Carlisle City and Queens Meadow. The primary schools in all of these districts are much closer to the centre of the town, and you can see that some of the houses on the edge of these districts haven't got educated residents. And they've been there for quite a long time, so I would expect them to all be educated by now. I think this area here might be the best place to put in an elementary school. I know that these people down in Swan Square are struggling a little bit, and I may add one up in this area at some point, but the area that I want to tackle right now is up here. Now we have a children's health centre over here, and I like to pair the two things together, so putting a primary school around here somewhere would probably be the best idea. I think I may bulldoze these houses here and put the primary school right next to the bridge so people from this district and people from this district can all get here easily. I've used the elementary school from the Green Cities pack, and you can see that the benefits now reach to this side of the river and to almost all of the suburban roads within Carlisle City. There's also houses upgrading left, right and centre over here, so I think this was definitely the thing they needed. We have just enough capacity now for all of the children in this city, but I'm sure that it's going to dip under again soon, so a primary school down here may be necessary. As the next milestone is still quite far away, I think I'm going to build a small community over here near the new farm. It's going to be very simple and it's going to be just the generic housing style, but it's going to have enough facilities over here because they're quite far away from everything else in the city. So I'm going to do this build in a little time lapse and then give you a tour afterwards. I've actually decided to go with the European suburbia housing type in this district because I thought it's next to the farm and we don't really have anywhere else that I can think of that this district style will fit in. So it's a lot of hedges and very neat gardens and orange and brown roofs, and then some generic commercial down the main street. I'll leave them up here for a while to get on with it, and I'll check in again with Gilded Beach. These beaches are ridiculously busy. Each of these has over 200 people visiting them every week. And every time I've come back to have a look, they've just had more and more people. I know this end of the district probably doesn't feel very finished right now, but I'm going to do a little bit more with this in the next episode. It looks like all of the commercial in this district is completely maxed out, but the housing is sitting at around 2.5 stars. This secondary school was definitely needed. They're already at maximum capacity, and they seem to have people coming from as far as Loga Heights to go here, which I'm not surprised about because they don't have their own high school. And initially I didn't want them to be too educated, but if the Sims aren't getting educated in a high school, they're not going to go to a university. So I think maybe that's where I was slipping up with the campus area before, and I was wondering why we didn't have enough university students, but actually I was kind of putting them at a disadvantage because I wasn't giving them enough high schools. So hopefully this will help to have a knock-on effect with the campus area. I think I'm going to end this episode here. A little bit of a shorter one today because I'm really ramping up with Calathea to get that finished by the time the second game comes out. I'm really glad that this train station worked out, and I think it's the perfect thing to put in a pedestrian district. I love the way the shopping malls look with this district style, and I'm really glad that we've had loads of visitors so far. At the very beginning of this episode, we put in this highway interchange and built a farming industry area. Now there's a second point of access on the highway to relieve pressure off of the one down here. Farming area ended up being a lot bigger than I intended for it to be, but it's at level 4 already and it's producing a huge amount of profit. I also finally swapped out the polluting sewage pumps for the eco water treatment plants. Very briefly flooded this piece of land, but I think it's reached a good balance now. These 3 pumps are handling pretty much the entire build so far, and they're not putting any pollution into the water, so that's great. Doing a lot of building in Gilded Beach, building this commercial pedestrian area, using the shopping malls DLC, and this district has been extremely popular, mainly due to these 2 beaches down here. This asset draws a huge amount of tourists in, but that's perfect because this district is supposed to be all about tourism. I'm going to be extending this pedestrian district out this way, and there's going to be some more parks and plazas and some more commercial. I also added a few more colourful blocks of housing. There's high density along the main road and then low density in the back. I also put in a secondary school because they are in dire need of one, and it's already maxed out, drawing students in from 2 districts away. Plus there's a few sports related assets around it. I haven't touched on the campus today because there hasn't been any need to. It's still at level 3, although it will probably be upgrading to level 4 by the end of its current academic year. But to get up to level 5, like I mentioned in the last episode, is going to be very difficult because we're going to need to pretty much double up on all of the buildings, or put in another sports venue, if that even counts towards the attraction points, because they are so far off in that respect. Paloma Valley as a whole is doing really well at the moment. I'm pretty proud that most areas are completely self-sufficient and I don't really have to go in and fix anything. We're at about 32,000 residents at the moment. I know it's taken a while to get here because not all of these episodes have been filled on housing and they've been demanding things like industry and commercial, but I'm really enjoying this organic growth of Paloma Valley. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Let me know if you've got any ideas on what we should call this county. Obviously this isn't part of Castlemead anymore, so it's going to need its own county name so that I'm not just referring to it as the piece of land over the river all the time. Make sure to check out my other series, Calathea, if you haven't already. I'm getting really close to the end of that build now, and we're only a few weeks away from the second game coming out, so that series is going to be wrapping up very soon. I'll be back next Thursday with a new episode, but until then, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.